And we did this video that some of you may have already seen that's out there where I did a video with Mayor Cory of Newark. And we made fun of two things in the video. You know, we made fun of all this stuff about me running for vice president of the United States, and we made fun of Booker running into that building and saving the woman during the fire. And so we tried to switch roles. You know, I was looking for somebody to save, and Booker was on the phone with Mitt Romney trying to get a new job. And it's gotten a lot of attention around the country today after we put it out last night at the event. And it was funny, and it was meant to be funny, and Cory is a friend, and we had a good time doing the video together. You all know Cory's a Democrat, and the reason why I bring that up to start off today is it's kind of emblematic of the way I've been trying to govern in the state over the last 2.5 years. Now, there are plenty of things that Cory and I disagree about from a policy perspective, and he'll stand up and fight for the things that he believes in, and you all know I'll certainly stand up for the things that I believe in as well. But it doesn't mean that we can't work together. It doesn't mean that we can't find a way to do the job that you all sent us to do, which is to get things done. You know, we have too much in politics today of people who are posturing and preening and posing and sending out press releases. They think that's what their job is. All you have to do is look at Washington, D.C., right? I mean, they can't get a thing done down there. And everybody's at fault. Everybody's to blame. People have to reach across the aisle and start working with each other and finding common ground. And, you know, when I called Cory to ask me to do that video with me, he said yes right away. And that doesn't happen overnight between Republicans and Democrats. You have to build relationships. And it doesn't mean that you're going to compromise your principles, because I won't and have not compromised my principles in the time I've been governor. But there is also, as I've said many times, a boulevard between compromising your principles and getting everything you want. You know, you all in New Jersey have decided to send me a divided government. Republican governor, Democratic state legislature. You're very funny. I really appreciate it. But that's what you decided to do. And so I can't just sit back and say, well, I'm going to sit in the corner here and hold my breath until you put people in charge of the legislature who I agree with. We'd get nowhere. We'd still be in the same shape we were in, you know, 2.5 years ago. 117,000 lost jobs in the year before I became governor. Unemployment rate over 10%. 115 tax and fee increases in the 8 years before I became governor. The highest taxed citizens in America, according to the Tax Foundation. You know, just a mess. $70 billion in wealth having left the state in the 4 years before I became governor. $70 billion in wealth left. That's what partisanship gets you. That's what being unwilling to compromise will get you. Is people standing in the corner and staring at each other, or one party dominating and pursuing policies that were bad for our state. So I'm not going to make any apologies of working with Democrats. That's my job. I got to work with people who I don't agree with on every issue. But it's my job to find the issues we do agree on and to force compromise where the people don't think compromise is possible. So how do we do that, right? What's the evidence that we've actually done it? 2 budgets now that we balanced with significant deficits going into them without raising taxes on the people of the state of New Jersey for the first time in 2.5 years. A cap on property taxes at 2%. A cap on interest arbitration awards at 2% that drove those salaries. And finally, reforming the pension and benefit system so that we could make sure the pensions are there for our police officers, our firefighters, our teachers, our other public workers. But at the same time, not bankrupting our citizens in the process. And so we passed historic reform. It's the biggest reform that's been passed in any state in the country, saving $132 billion over the next 30 years, and making those pensions stable once again, so they'll be there for the people who have worked and earned and plan their retirements based on it. I didn't do that by myself. I did it with Democrats like Steve Sweeney and Sheila Oliver, Brian Stack, Sandy Cunningham, people in the Senate and the Assembly who were willing to put aside partisanship and say, you know what, the governor's right on this, and we've got to do it. That only happens because you're supporting me. I guarantee you that. Because you know, those guys down at Trenton, one of the things they're expert at is reading polls. They're reading polls all the time. Many of them read polls to figure out what they think. And a lot of them read polls to figure out how they're going to act. And so when you all say that you approve of the job I'm doing, when you say you support the policies that we're pursuing, that makes them sit up and take notice. It's one of the ways that you can help to make a difference. Showing up at events like today is one of the ways you make a difference. So that's why I'll continue to work with Democrats like them to make things happen for our state, and I'll compromise. I'll put out a plan, and I'll realize I'm not going to get all of it, but my job is to get as much of it as I can and not compromise my principles in the process, and I won't do that. But, you know, there are those in Trenton who have not yet gotten the memo, that are not part of the group who wants to make things happen. You know, they're the folks who want to continue to run Trenton the way it's been running for the 8 years before I got there. And those folks need to be spoken to directly. We got two in particular that really don't get it. Lou Greenwald and Paul Sarlo. Now, these are the guys who were the chairman of the Budget Committee last year in the Assembly and the Senate. Paul Sarlo is still there this year in the Senate. Lou Greenwald got a promotion to Majority Leader. And let me tell you what these guys did last year. Last year, they put $816 million in additional spending into the budget, had no tax revenues to pay for it. Sent me the budget that way, knowingly sent me the budget that way. They knew their numbers were fake, they knew they were phony, and they sent it to me anyway, purely for politics, because they thought no way the governor will use his line item veto pen to strike out spending because it'll be too unpopular. And so they were sending our state careening back towards the days of deficits where we were going to have to lay people off, raise taxes in order to pay for their spending. Well, they misevaluated two very important things. One, they misevaluated me. And I took that pen out and I line item vetoed out just for good savings, $900 million. Not 816, $900 million out of the budget. And they misevaluated you. Because in the days after I did that to the budget, they yelled and screamed and called me all kinds of names. You all might remember it from last summer. There were words on the front page of the newspaper that I never thought I'd see in print in my entire life. I mean, people used to call me that stuff in private all the time, but they'd never put it in the newspaper before. And they tried to tell you that New Jersey was going to be a disaster after these cuts were made, that our kids weren't going to get an education, that hospitals would close, that poor people wouldn't be taken care of. You remember, they told you all that. They called me all kinds of names. They said I was cold and I was heartless and bloodless. But here's what the people in New Jersey knew. They saw this game before, and they've seen these actors before, and they know they're full of it. And what they saw was, on July 1st, when the new budget year started, the sun came up in the morning, and people went to work. In fact, more people going to work now, 70,000 more people going to work every day now than when I became governor, because we're pursuing fiscally responsible policies at the state level and not listening to these guys anymore. So now, why is that important? Because these same jokers are back. They're back now, and here's what they're going to be telling you over the next couple of weeks. They're going to say, trust us. Trust us on the numbers. Governor wants to cut your taxes. So does Senator Sweeney, by the way. But they want to cut your taxes, but their numbers aren't right. Our numbers are right. Coming from the same people who last year wanted to spend $816 million of your money that we didn't have. And you know what they would have done? They would have just come back to you in the middle of the year and raised your taxes, because they've done it over and over and over again. So I want you to be careful. This is the crazy 47 days in Trenton. It's crazy. 47 days. We've got 46 days left for them to act, and then the day after. And it's going to be crazy, and they're going to be telling you all kinds of stuff. So remember, when they tell you that stuff, these are the same people who were telling you a year ago, spend the extra $800 million. No problem. The same people who dug us in a hole for 8 years, the same people who during that 8 years, New Jersey had zero private sector job growth. In 8 years, not one net new private sector job in New Jersey, because they made us the most expensive place in America to live and work because of their policies. And those are the Democrats I refuse to work with, because those Democrats are the ones who are asking me to compromise my principle, and my principle is this. I will not ask you for another dollar in increased taxes until I can look you in the eye and say government is spending every dollar you already spend efficiently. We're not, and until we fix that, we're not raising anybody's taxes in the state. By the way, just so you can get the scope of 115 tax and fee increases in 8 years, because it's almost too big to really fathom. That's a tax or fee increase every 25 days for 8 years. Every 25 days for 8 years, those Democrats in Trenton raised a tax or a fee at the state level on you. Took more money out of your pocket. Took more money away from your family to spend on their favorite little project in Trenton. Let me give you a clue, everybody. The only way to make sure that we don't waste any more money in Trenton is to never send it to us in the first place. Those are the guys who said, we trust our numbers. We trust our numbers. They were only $800 million off last time. You know, $800 million here, $800 million there. You start talking about real money. These guys have gotten it wrong before. They're getting it wrong again. And you know why? It's not because they're dumb. It's worse. It's worse because they're the same old politicians that have inhabited Trenton for a decade. They will do or say anything that they think will advance their political future. They forget that you sent us there to try to make your future better, not just to make our future better. And that's why they say these things. I would not be as upset about it if I could just write it off to them being stupid. Then you say, well, geez, there's nothing they can do about that. But not telling the truth to try to advance your own political agenda is much, much worse. Much worse. And so we're going to have a fight over the next 47 days. And as I said in the video, I don't go looking for fights. But I will fight the fights worth fighting. And here's the fight worth fighting in the next 46 days. People of New Jersey haven't had a tax cut in over a decade. You've made the sacrifices that are necessary to step up and help me balance this budget, and I want to give you some of your money back to spend on your family, not to spend in Trenton. So that's going to be the challenge, and get ready. It's going to be entertaining. I can guarantee you, if you like the names I was called before, you can only imagine the ones I'm going to be called in the next 46 days. But there also will be some good Democrats. Some good Democrats in the legislature will stand up and say, you know what? We're putting party behind policy. We're putting politics aside to have progress for our state. 70,000 new private sector jobs since I've been governor. Unemployment rate down since I've been governor. The budget now balanced since I've been governor. We are proving that these policies work, and we're leading the country in doing it. We've made the tough decisions, and you all have supported me in making those tough decisions. You've shown politicians all over America that people in New Jersey are not only tough, but they're smart. They know we had a party for 8 years that we couldn't pay for, that we didn't pay for. And that when that happens, the day of reckoning comes, and we've had that day of reckoning over the last 2+ years. And now as things start to get better, and they are, as the New Jersey comeback is beginning, I am not going to allow them to take the fruits of that comeback that you worked for and keep it for themselves. They've got to give some of it back to you, for your families, to save for college for your kids, to help to pay down some debt you may have had to run up during difficult times, to grow your business and hire some more people, to do whatever you think is best with the money you've earned, rather than just continuing each and every day, or at least every 25 days, to raise a tax or raise a fee in this state. So that's going to be the fight over the next 46 days. And I'll find some good Democrats who will work with me, and I'm convinced that we'll get a tax cut passed between now and June 30th, and you'll start to see tax relief for the first time in a long time. And remember this, our property tax cap is beginning to work. Last year, property taxes increased less than any year in the last 20 years in New Jersey, and we're going to continue that spiral going down because we're working together, and we're making tough choices together, and we're holding government accountable together, because it's our money that government gets to spend. It's not anybody else's money. It's our money.